Are we live?
It's not showing up on my channel yet. You put on both our channels, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it says welcome to our live show. So it's not showing up on your channel.
Oh.
Your channel must be delayed.
Probably. Oh, there it is. Welcome to our live show.
Jeez. Why is this not working now? Oh, here we go. Hold on. I got one more thing I got to do here. I'm going to change the name of the title real quick.
Oh, definitely do that.
Am I able to do that while it's live? No, I don't think so. I got to figure out how to do that. We're learning. We're learning. We're learning.
Curve. Yeah. All right. Well.
All right, everyone. Welcome to our live show. As it says on the title, the title will be changed to what are we titling this? Villains.
Yep. Greatest villains in fiction.
Greatest villains in pop culture, games, comic books, movies, TV shows, you name it. Your mom's house.
That's right. So who are we?
I am Vase and I from Left for the Vultures.
And I'm Gio, known as Headless Hammerhead from the Headless Hammerhead YouTube channel.
Thank you guys for joining us. Whoever's joining us,
welcome.
Yes, welcome all.
We'll see
if you're watching this on
anybody join us live.
Yeah, if we
if
get
not,
live,
they can catch it on the rewind.
Yeah, if they watch the VOD, then hi to you guys who are watching on the VOD. Today, Gio and I are going to be having a really fun discussion about villains, our favorite villains, what makes them cool, makes them interesting, some things that could be done better maybe with them that we think could be done better, and all that good stuff. So with that said, let's go ahead and get things started. So just in general, before we start mentioning any villains, what makes a great villain?
Well, they have to be relatable. I think they have to have something about them that the viewer or player or whatever can relate to, that humanizes them. Except there are some exceptions, which we'll get to. But I think for the most part, the greatest villains in history have had something that everybody could just, put themselves in their shoes somewhat.
Yeah, putting yourself in their shoes, that's big, because then it almost gives you that instant, like, you're making excuses for them for things that they're doing, or you're at least somewhat understanding where they're coming from or why they're doing the things that they're doing, as opposed to villains that are just straight up evil, have no motivations at all. Then at that point, they become really boring because you can't relate to them and you can't understand why they're just being the way that they're being.
Yeah, there are a few exceptions to that where it can be done properly. It could be done well. However, those are the exceptions to the rules.
Yep. So now that we've defined what makes a great villain, I guess let's start with the list. You have a list that you made. We're going to kind of shoot off of that, and I have a few maybe that I'll throw in if I remember. So what's on the top of your list there?
Well, I figure we could start maybe with, let's go with Hannibal Lecter. Why not?
Ooh.
Hannibal the Cannibal. From Silence of the Lambs. And then later the Hannibal movie.
Interesting one to pick first. Is he a villain though?
Yeah. I mean, in his own movie, in the Hannibal, so in the Silence of the Lambs, he is a villain. But I guess technically he's helping the hero, Clarice, by giving her hints and tips and whatnot, although he does mislead her at one point just to test her. So I guess he could be seen as the sage if you're looking at, say, the classic hero's journey.
That's what I was thinking. In the first novel that he was in, Red Dragon, it most definitely is a villain because, spoiler alert for those who haven't read the book or watched the movie from like 20-some years ago, in the end of the book or the movie, he sends the serial killer out to the main protagonist, like gives him all the information of where the protagonist lives so that the serial killer can go and kill him.
And then in the Hannibal movie, which would be the third part in the trilogy of stories, he is definitely not a good person. He murders people in very, very grandiose ways.
Yeah, there's
But I,
just in that movie, it's interesting because there are people that are even worse than him in a way.
yeah, yeah, and he gets revenge on pretty
Cardell,
much on.
is it
Yeah,
Carl or Cardell? Who
yeah,
was it? That was such a cool character.
it was
Such a
so
cool
good,
character.
so
That
good.
movie's underrated.
So I think part of what made him great is uh, not just that he's relatable. I think that part of what makes him relatable is the fact that he's very intelligent, and I think everybody has had somebody who has slighted them or that they want to get back at some point for whatever reason. And Hannibal Lecter comes up with really interesting, intricate ways to get back at people. And I think everybody at some point, at least, fantasizes of being able to come up with something like that and get revenge, without getting caught or without necessarily totally destroying somebody.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think overall, as a villain, the things that we can learn from him for your tabletop role playing, or if you're writing a comic book or whatever, and trying to come up with a villain, is the the aspect of him that is so hard to read. He's got this intellect. You never know what angle he's playing because he's so many steps ahead of everybody else. He's playing 4D chess, right? So it's really hard to pinpoint him, and I think that makes him super interesting because he may come across as trying to help the hero, but there may be an additional motivation there that you don't know until way later because he just thought ahead of that, so much.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that another very similar character to him was um Lee Woo Jin from Old Boy. So the original
Oh.
Old Boy Korean film, they remade it, of course, with Thanos. Uh, but I think that the original is much much better because, of course, it goes to the extreme that the American audiences probably couldn't really handle. It really gets crazy. But the main bad guy, it's not so much the villain Lee Woo Jin himself, but what he does, and I think that's part of what makes Hannibal also really really interesting. It's how he lays out his plan and executes his plan, because
Yeah.
I mean he played the long game and really tortured the the hero, right, the
Yeah.
protagonist. So
I mean, it's a Old Boy is a classic vengeance tale, and one of the things that inspired Life for the Vultures, the game that I'm making, it's all about vengeance. Old Boy is one of the if you look up like vengeance stories, Old Boy is almost always on everyone's list. It's really good. So it's a little bit more of an obscure film. Because it was originally an international film and then got adapted to English language in America. Um, a lot of people don't know about that movie because when it was adapted, even though it has an A-list actor, he's A-list now. He wasn't when he made Old Boy. The
right,
guy who played Thanos. What's his name again?
uh geez,
I blank out when I'm doing live. People in the comments will they'll post it in the comments. Trust
yeah,
me,
yeah,
because they'll be like yelling at their screen, like if we can read in hindsight. But we appreciate it. We appreciate that you guys can answer it for whoever doesn't know or wants to know who that actor is. But yeah, he wasn't so well known, and it was actually a very low budget film from what I remember. So it didn't reach a lot of people. So a lot of people still don't know what Old Boy or who what Old Boy is. So basically, do you remember what the story is in that movie?
yeah. So the protagonist, whatever, I forgot his name, he's captured, he's kidnapped one day, just boom, off the street. And he wakes up in like this small room. And it turns out it's kind of like a hotel, but he's in this cell within this hotel. And he's a prisoner and he's being fed every day or whatever. And he's got some kind of TV playing, and he's there for like 14 years or something. It's crazy. Uh, and he doesn't know why he's there or what's happening or who captured him, nothing. And one day the door just opens and they let him out. And he comes out to the city and he like meets some lady at a bar, at a sushi bar, and he befriends her, and they start talking, they become really good friends. Eventually, like he I won't give you any spoilers, but twisted stuff happens. Eventually
Very twisted stuff.
eventually it's revealed who the villain is and why. at the very end during the reveal. It's crazy stuff. But you know, there's tongues getting cut off. There's
Mhm.
incest. There's all sorts of crazy stuff, man. And it
It's a
it
great
is a
movie.
great
It's
movie.
very violent, very brutal, just a lot of hardcore stuff going on with it. And I think it just adds to the story. It's not gratuitous for the sake of being gratuitous, but it's gratuitous to really drive home the point that this vengeance is everything that this person is living for now, is just enacting their revenge. And when you see the brutality and all the crazy stuff that's going on, you realize to what extent this person's willing to go to get their revenge.
Exactly. And speaking of revenge and revenge tales, Kill Bill, or how you call it, Kill William.
Yeah.
Uh, One of the greatest modern vengeance. Of course, you've got John Wick, but right before that, you had Kill Bill, and the bride is left for dead, and she goes out, man, slaughtering everybody. She's got a
Yeah.
hit list. And the first, so it's in two parts: Kill Bill Volume One, Kill Bill Volume Two. And in Kill Bill Volume One, the villain is
Oren Ishii.
Oren Ishii,
She's half Japanese, half Chinese, kind of mafia boss.
played by Lucy
And
Liu.
Lucy Liu, played by Lucy Liu. So the way Kill Bill, for those who haven't watched Kill Bill, basically the movie starts with this bride in on her wedding day, her and her husband and all the guests, all the people at the wedding, including the piano player, are slaughtered, murdered in a really, really brutal way by this group of assassins. And as the movie progresses, you find out the bride survives. She was paralyzed for I don't know how long, months or years or whatever, but she comes back and all she wants is revenge for what happened. And she starts targeting all these assassins one by one. And it turns out that she was part of this group of elite assassins. And so she list and she's crossing names off her list. And at the end of the they a brutal fighter, a brutal assassin who can fight with a sword and super deadly with a sword. And yeah, so that's the main villain of the first
Yeah,
Kill
and
Bill
the
movie.
final battle is really cool. I mean, it's this the setting is really neat. First, it starts in like this dojo kind of place, and lots of fighting with other martial artists and whatever. And then
Well,
you
it's a
have the
bar. It's not a dojo. It's a bar where the
but he
fight
looks like
starts.
like
It
a
looks a little bit like a dojo. I mean, I think
yeah,
it's like very Japanese inspired, but
yeah,
basically, um, the bride to get to the boss, to get to Oren Ishii, she needs to fight like dozens of individuals. They call them the Crazy 88. There's not really 88 of them, but it feels like there's like 88 of them because there's so many people that she's murdering and killing to cut them down to get through to Oren Ishii, including her stronger henchmen that are really good fighters themselves. Um, what's cool about Oren Ishii as a villain is because she is a mafia leader, a mafia boss, she has an entourage that's really cool. And that's something that some villains have that makes them really interesting is not just the villain themselves are being interesting, but the entourage that they go around with them, their henchmen that have their own unique things to them. Ornishi has this little girl that looks innocent. She's dressed like a schoolgirl, but she is super deadly. She's got this ball with spikes on it attached to a chain that she just throws around and like kills people with it. And then the other guy that fights with the swords, that's bald or whatever, and he can jump really high and stuff. Like there are some really, really cool elements to the henchman that Oranishi has. And then when the bride finally gets through, spoiler alert, sorry, she cuts through all of them. Then she ends up fighting Oren Ishii. And Oren, she is, because of her Japanese heritage, she has this honor system. So that's another aspect that makes her an interesting villain. So she has a lot of layers that make her interesting: the mafia boss angle, the henchman angle, but also the honor system thing. Even though she let the bride fight all those people to get to her, she doesn't fight her, when she is at her peak of exhaustion. She then confronts her one on one, like in an honorable Japanese style duel at the very end of the movie.
Yeah, and it's really really cool how they do it. But uh, that's uh, that's a movie that you should check out. So definitely highly recommended. And the reason it's called Kill Bill is because the big boss that ran this Assassin's Guild or whatever is named Bill, and it's played by, um, geez, blank on his name, but the guy from Kung Fu, the legend, Kung Fu and Kung Fu, the legend continues. David Carradine.
Carradine.
Yeah.
So Bill, the reason we don't mention Bill, even though he's the namesake of the film, because he's not as interesting. There are elements to him that make him interesting. There's a speech, a monologue that he gives at the end of the film that's kind of interesting about Superman and all that, but even that goes on a little too long. Like, I feel like that character was, there was so much build up with all the other assassins, the mini bosses, quote unquote, all had some unique thing to them. And then Bill himself just ends up being kind of
falls flat.
Falls very flat. I mean,
and I see what they tried to do with him.
Yeah.
There are other villains where you build up a legend about the villain. It happened with Darth Vader, and we'll talk about the Darth Vader later because he's not on this list for me. But you hear all these legends and you see bits and pieces of what they can do. You see hints of them. So there's a show based on a video game. The show is called Arcane, based on League of Legends, the video game. And Jinx is one of the villains, and they did something similar to Kill Bill with her. Although in the beginning she starts off as the little girl Powder, and then she's with her sister. Then she ends up getting basically taken by one of the bad guys and trained in secret. Years later, everybody thinks Powder's just dead. But years later, everybody starts hearing about this assassin who's like the greatest assassin that works for this bad guy. And, everybody fears her. Her name is Jinx. And then when it is revealed, when she comes out and to stop somebody that's fighting her assassin friends, turns out it's her sister. And so she comes face to face with her. This is where the sister realizes, oh man, Powder's not dead. There she is. And she says, no, I'm Jinx, and you've created me. And she ends up having a really cool story arc. And she ends up being a very, very interesting villain and done very, very well. That is a great show. I recommend everybody watch it. I'm not big into cartoons, but this was really, really captivating. Very well done. But basically, this is something where you can introduce the legend of the bad guy first, build them up that way, and then do the reveal. And then you can throw bits and pieces more of their history here and there, but keep some of that mystique, because sometimes a great villain needs that mystique.
Yeah.
That mystery around them.
So going back to Kill Bill, you're right. I think that's what they were going for. In fact, in the movie, I forget if it's the first one or the second one, they play like a little cartoon of some of the things that Bill did, right? Yeah. Some of the brutal things that kind of he did to build himself up into the leader that he became. And you don't even see his real face. They use a cartoon, so you don't even get to see him. So it kind of builds the mystique, like you said. It's legendary.
Yeah, it keeps
but
it
he
as
falls
a legend.
so flat. But what's funny is that, just like Jinx, right? I've never seen that cartoon that you're talking about, but just like that Jinx character, in the same movie or in the same two movies, they do the exact same thing with Oren Ishii, which is awesome, which is hilarious. Because Oren Ishii, now with her, they don't hide her face and put her in. They do make a cartoon with her too, but they actually show her past as well, some of the things that she's done, and they show her fully. So it doesn't have as much mystique, but her legend still lands because some of the things she does are so brutal and insane, especially the live action flashback scene where she runs across the table and cuts someone's like scalp off. Like, that was so brutal and awesome that it's still, even though there wasn't as much of a mystique as Bill, it still landed better because now you saw just how brutal this killer is that the bride is going after. And then when you see the bride fighting and getting injured while she's tearing through this mob of henchmen, and then specifically the little girl that really beats her up, and she's all brutalized, and she's facing Oranishi. You're like, how is she going to beat Oranishi after watching all the stuff that Oranishi did?
Yeah.
And then they literally copied kind of a similar thing with Bill, in terms of giving that legend and making it even more mysterious, and he lands flat.
Yeah.
It's
another character where they did that was Lord Soth from the Dragonlance series. And Lord Soth, he led the evil armies or whatever, and you didn't know much about him, or what happened to him, how he is who he is, and eventually they reveal bits and pieces here and there, but he's still extremely mysterious. And they do, in one of the novels, go through his whole history, right? Starting back when he's a Royal Knight of the Rose, before he becomes the Knight of the Black Rose. But I think with him, his origin story was so intriguing as well, and so relatable, that's where I think he still resonated with a lot of the readers. I think with most readers, I think so many people love Lord Soth.
For those who don't know, Lord Soth is a character from the Dragonlance series for Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition,
and eventually Ravenloft as well. He ends up being a Dark Lord in Ravenloft.
But yeah, he had a really interesting story. There's a book, a novel called Knight of the Black Rose, which kind of tells his story of how he went into Ravenloft or into the Dark Realms and became a Dark Lord. Really cool. I highly recommend that book. It's really fun read.
Really fun read.
It starts out in Dragonlance in that setting, and then kind of goes into the Dark Realms, and you get to see some characters from the Dark Realms like Strahd, Von Zarevich, and a couple others. That's pretty neat because they make cameos, and that's really cool.
Yep. But so in contrast, so I'll bring up Darth Vader now, I guess, because it kind of makes sense to bring him up now. Darth Vader is introduced in the first Star Wars movie, what they call Episode 4 or whatever, right at the beginning. Like, it's, I think, maybe the opening scene. He busts in, and he's like, just with the Force, pushes people away. There's the theme song. Everybody's afraid, and Princess Leia, gets captured or whatever. And then you don't see anything else. And for the rest of the movie, basically, you're just hearing these rumors about who he is and why he is who he is. And they build him up really well. For the first trilogy, episodes 4, 5, and 6, he sure would fall. On most greatest villains of all time, he falls number 1. I looked it up online. I tried to find greatest villains of all time lists. He's at the top of pretty much all of them.
Really?
Yeah. And I rolled my eyes because, if it was still just those 3 movies, 100% could then very much.
He's interesting. I don't know.
He's interesting. He could be near the top. Sure, maybe. Yeah, okay. But if it was just those first 3 movies, but then they did the prequels, and you know how I feel about the prequels. Sorry, but they are terrible. And I think that with the prequels first, they completely removed the mystique of Darth Vader. They messed it up because it was completely unbelievable. There were so many mistakes, so many holes, and loose ends, and things that just didn't make sense. Like, my biggest gripe is he has a bad dream, so he wakes up and he says, "Oh, I gotta protect her," his girlfriend. "Oh, I gotta protect her. Let me murder a bunch of 6-year-olds." Come on, man. No. When you're a freaking Jedi, no, nobody's gonna believe that. And the people who believe it, I'm sorry. You just like it because you like the idea of the prequels, the idea of the origin story of Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
That is what, and this is the problem with a lot of stories, right? Where sometimes you just want to keep that mystique. And I know the fans sometimes beg and they clamor for it. And, we want to hear the origin story. Let's do a spinoff with the origin of this character. But creators need to tread carefully with that, because sometimes be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. And it's like meeting your heroes, right? Never meet your heroes, because you'll be disappointed. And you build them up in your head. And it's the same thing with some of these characters, bad guys or good guys. You build them up in your head and you have this idea of them, and it's completely idealized if you really love this character. But if then they come out with, an origin story and it falls short, then it's such a big disappointment, and everybody pins it on Jar Jar Binks, but no, the entire thing just sucked.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the whole thing sucked. I think honestly with Darth Vader, the like you said, they killed the mystique with the origin story. They made him into something that nobody pictured. I know a lot of like younger people who are in the 20s and 30s didn't grow up with the original Star Wars. I get that. So they don't understand. But when we watched Star Wars, there was a gap of like what 20 years before the prequels came out where
Yeah.
all we knew was those three films, and everyone who watched those three films had an idea in their head of what all this was. From the Jedi Order, this they just kind of teased, like, oh, there's this ancient order of like of knights who defend the realm or whatever, the galaxy and this and that. It's an ancient order, and in my mind it's nothing like they showed in the prequels, where they're just
Nope.
sitting at a political table and they're
Yeah,
just wearing their robes.
politics and all
the
that.
the reason, and also like, you know the reason they wear the robes in the prequels is because they're copying what Obi-Wan Kenobi was wearing in the first
In the
movie.
first,
But
yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi was wearing that because he was living in the desert,
In a
so he's
desert
wearing a
planet.
cloak that's a desert cloak.
And
It
all of a
doesn't
sudden that
mean that
becomes like and you're the one who mentioned this to me when we first watched the prequels in the movie theater, and I liked the first one, The Phantom Menace, when it first came out, but then as they continued coming out, it just got worse and worse, and I'm like, oh my lord. But you mentioned this to me, and it really put into perspective. They took an entire galaxy, not the small planet, not a country, not a state, not a city, a freaking galaxy, a universe, not even a galaxy, it's a universe. And they've shrunk it because now this whole prequel trilogy, Chewbacca led the rebellion of the freaking
he met Yoda. Chewbacca met Yoda, who also met Han
The guy was a
Solo,
freaking pirate rebel who was
C-3PO.
wanted. And then you have C-3PO is there, and R2D2, and then you have the Clone Wars. Well, who did they clone? Not a bunch of different people. No,
Nope.
they had to have the bounty hunter, who was a nobody. He was just
Boba
two
Fett.
scenes on the freaking thing, Boba Fett.
Yeah.
But people like the design of the character, and all of a sudden, we got to make him something.
So
he's the one everyone cloned. What?
Yeah.
You
It made the universe so small. It literally, when we watched those original films, this universe was like massive. And when they made those prequels, they literally shrunk it to smaller than the size of a city. Because in a city, like I live in Portland, right? The chances of me running into someone, right, are so freaking low.
Yep.
But running into multiple people and they running into other people that know, like, what? And that's a city, a small city. Portland is not a big city. It's a small city. Now, expand that to a country, expand that to a continent, expand that to the planet, and now expand that to a freaking
universe. Galaxy. Dude.
And all these people are meeting each other. It just happened to just all.
There's so much wrong. We could do a whole stream just on that, but we're getting a little off tangent. But that's why I don't have Darth Vader on here, because the prequel trilogy and subsequent movies totally screwed up Darth Vader for me as a cool villain.
Yeah, when they introduced Darth Vader, I imagined, because they were like, the way they talked, the way Obi-Wan talked to Luke about him was like, oh, he was my pupil, and he was
seduced
corrupted
by the dark side. Yes.
Yeah, he was corrupted by the dark side, and he has by now become more machine than man. So in my mind, it happened over a long period of time. Like just little by little, he just was getting corrupted and adding more pieces to himself. And then eventually looks back and is like, oh, more machine than man. But then you watch the prequels and it's like it all happened in an instant. It all just happened all at once.
And it's so funny because that final scene, get up, my little Darth Vader, in that closet. Basically, that's what they turned the entire galaxy and universe into. That small closet where the freaking Emperor wakes up Darth Vader.
Yeah.
That closet where they filmed that, where they ran out of money and just decided, okay, let's just film it in my freaking garage or whatever.
It's terrible, man. Yeah, they really ruined.
But
I tell my coworkers at my side job, but they're all younger, so they don't understand, and they're like, I like the prequels. They were better than the originals. I'm like, dude, you have no clue.
Well,
You don't
but
know.
so the whole point of us talking about these prequel trilogy is why Darth Vader is no longer, at least in my book, one of the greatest villains of all time. And they've done this with many villains, like say Maleficent, right? She would never have topped my list. However, they did a freaking origin story where this is the new thing in film is getting the villain and they're the misunderstood villain. You
Yeah.
know, Maleficent, oh, she's good. It's just you don't understand her. Like, Wicked,
Yeah.
Elphaba. Like, she is the Wicked Witch of the freaking West. She was just evil. That's just who she was. And then all of a sudden, she's just misunderstood because she's mean and she's got the racism. Like, man,
Yeah.
doing these origin stories completely screwed up all those characters. And Darth Vader's in there with them. So
Yeah, it's just because they run out of things to write about, and so they try to revisit. And, oh well, we don't know the story behind this guy. Let's tell the real story behind. Like in
yeah,
moderation, some telling the real story behind something could be interesting if done right, but it's
yeah.
in more times than not they completely fail at
And
those things.
one of the greatest, probably top two of all time, greatest villains is the Joker from the Batman comic books. And what makes him so great is that mystique. Nobody knows his true story. Nobody actually knows his true identity. So in every movie, it's a different person who becomes Joker,
Hmm.
and it's a different origin and the different reason why he does what he does. In the Nolan films, Batman Returns or whatever, I forgot which one it was. He, he throws out a lie every single time they ask him, and
Hmm.
you want to know how I got these scars, and he tells a totally different story every time, so you never know why. And then so Batman, he starts asking. I don't know if it was Alfred who told him. He's like, Alfred tells him, sometimes people are just evil, and
Yeah.
you mentioned this at the beginning that somebody who's just evil because they're evil isn't interesting, but they can be. Somebody like the Joker. There's a reason why he is how he is. We just don't know what it is, what that
Hmm.
thing is, and that's what makes him really, really interesting. The
And it,
need to.
yeah, and in the end, it doesn't matter. For some characters, it doesn't matter,
It doesn't
right?
matter.
Like King Joffrey. King Joffrey's another one. He just is exactly like that, just brutal for the sake of being brutal. He just wants to watch the world burn. Why is he like that? Probably has some mental deficiency, but we don't know, right?
Yep.
We don't know what maybe it has something to do with. The implication is that because he was born out of incest, that maybe there was some deficiency because of that, but that's just an implication. We don't actually know what made Joffrey the way he became, right? It could be a number of things, but it leaves us wondering and it makes us think about him more because we're like, well, what could it be that makes this guy
What
such a
makes
jerk,
somebody
right?
such a
But
yeah? And there are people like that in real life,
yeah,
which is in history. There have been people like that,
yeah,
and
but you can't just make a character that's straight up evil and unleash him on heroes and then just think that, oh yeah, I'm making my villain just as cool as Joffrey or just as cool as the Joker because no one knows he's so mysterious. He's just brooding dark all the time. Like
with
that's the wrong way to go about it, right? He
yeah,
wears a cloak and he just stands there brooding like the anime villains. Like, dude, that is not as interesting. And there's a reason for that, it's because there's a lot of layers to it, but part of it is you have to have action actions, but you also have to have a little bit of nuance within those actions. There's always, like, if you notice Joffrey or even Joker, there's always a little bit of nuance to the things that they do, you know and that makes it a little bit more interesting. But when
yeah.
you watch like an anime, one of those like edge lord villains from
The
anime,
black
and
cloak.
I'm
They always wear the same thing: a black cloak with
yeah,
a dark hat.
yeah, and they
Always
just
in
stand in
shadow.
shadow
His
and look.
face
It
half
makes him not
covered in
interesting
shadow.
at all. There's no nuance at all. You
No,
don't know
none.
anything. Like, you need to know a little something. Like with Joffrey, you know about the incest, and
Yeah,
that's what starts you thinking, oh, maybe it's from that. With, and sorry to spoil the incest thing for those who haven't watched the 10-year show. And then with the Joker, the nuance is, well, he's so weak physically. You
yeah.
know,
And yet he's
he's not
Batman's
this
greatest
ultimate
villain.
badass. Yeah,
Yeah, and he's Batman's greatest villain. And
yeah. He's so weak, but
you
yet
know,
no one
yeah,
can beat him. And it's like, huh, it took something extraordinary to beat him, but yet he's so physically weak. So how did he do it? That's the nuance. As opposed to those,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry to pick on the anime villains, but that's kind of the quickest example I can think of, is the one that sits in the corner and just brooding, just dark shadow. You don't know anything, you just know his name is
Now there
Darko.
are some exceptions to what you just said, though.
Sure.
A great so something like a juggernaut that is just pushing through, and I don't mean juggernaut like the character juggernaut. I mean a juggernaut that's
Okay,
just
because I was gonna
pushing
say
through.
Juggernaut has a lot of intricacies.
Yeah, that's just pushing through, like No Country for Old Men. The bad guy there, Anton. He's going through the world, just moving through, and he's killing people, and he is brutal, and he does not care. No emotion in his face. With that stupid haircut that just adds to it. Uh, and he is just a really, really interesting character, despite the fact that there's really nothing you can point to specifically that would make him interesting. You know what I mean? It's just because he's this
But
juggernaut
but that's
that
also different though. He's not like the anime villain that I was referring to. He doesn't come across that way. He is a force of nature that is unleashed by these unseen other forces.
right.
It's like this guy. For those who haven't watched the movie, this guy finds a bunch of money after like a shootout goes, or a drug trade goes wrong, and everyone dies. And he's watching from afar, and everyone's dead. So he's like, "There's this pile of money. I'm just gonna take it."
Take it.
And it was the worst mistake of his life, because now whoever is running this cartel, and you don't know which side, has unleashed this force of nature, which is Anton Chigurh. And now this force of nature, no one can stop. Like they've just, it's like they have a lion in a cage, they open the cage and get away and just let him do his thing, right? And
Yeah.
so with Anton Chigurh in that film, what makes him interesting, as opposed to those anime villains, is that he doesn't have this, this like, oh, I'm such a badass, nothing can hurt me, I'm just ultimate. He comes across as a force of nature, yes, and no motivation, but there is motivation, because again, he has little nuances that happen as he's trying to find his target. Like, for example, when he goes to the gas station, he makes the guy flip the coin.
Yeah.
And he says, keep this is like the luckiest day of your life, or something like that, right? And the guy has no clue what he's talking about.
What the bullet he just dodged.
But it's that kind of thing. Like, it makes you wonder, this guy is this force of nature that was unleashed, but what is that about? And then he meets with one of the police officers, and he has everyone knows who he is. He has a reputation. The police officer knows what he's getting, by even meeting him and seeing his face. He knows he's already dead, so it's those things. It's those things about Anton Chigurh that make him interesting. And then, to make him force of nature, you don't actually see him performing the act, right? In fact, spoilers. He doesn't even get to be the one that does what he was hired to do. Are you there? You're frozen.
Yeah,
there you go.
You froze for me for a second too, but yeah, I think that type of villain that is the force of nature. That's like,
Yeah.
Like the original Terminator. He's just a robot, and that's the thing. Like, I was always afraid of working, say, in a factory, and the machines coming down, and your arm gets caught, and it's a freaking machine, and it's just going to keep moving.
It's mindless. Yeah, mindless.
And
with Anton Chigurh,
and yeah.
Before you get to your point, there's a lot of stuff online about analyzing that movie and the book that it was based on, and some are saying that he's just a representation of death. And in a way, it makes sense, because the moment the guy found the suitcase and decided to take it, he was on a straight journey to death, and death and him were on a collision course. Now, did he meet that same death? No, he met a different one, right? But that death still came, and then came for everyone else that was near him. And so, in a way, it makes sense that they don't actually meet. They don't ever meet. The main character, who's the other detective, never meets Anton Chigurh. No one ever meets him, right? None of the main characters, really, except for one detective, really ever meet him. And he's just kind of symbolic. So sometimes when you make a villain and you're very deliberate about the symbolism, then it still comes off, even though they don't have any backstory or they're very mysterious, it still comes off as interesting, because people can read the symbolism behind it. They
Yeah,
understand just naturally what's happening
yeah.
there.
Even if it's on an unconscious level.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and that brings me to the example of like HAL 9000 from. Oh, I was going to say 20,000. It's not 20,000. Dear Lord, 2001: A Space Odyssey. So HAL 9000 is an AI. It's a computer that is running the spaceship that these two guys are on. They're trying to head to Jupiter because something was found in Jupiter. And HAL 9000 is a computer, and it's on its path of, hey, we got to get to Jupiter. Nothing's going to block this mission. Nothing's going to stop it. And spoiler alert: HAL 9000 ends up killing one of the astronauts on the ship because that astronaut was threatening to shut HAL 9000 down or turn the ship around or whatever and end the mission. And HAL 9000 is like, nope, we're going. And being on this mission, this is I rewatched it recently with my son because he wanted to watch it, and it reminded me of Anton from No Country for Old Men, because he is just like this juggernaut. He's got his path, he's on his path, and nothing's going to move him from that path, and he's going to do whatever it takes and tear down whoever's in his way to achieve his goal.
yeah. Yeah, HAL 9000 is an interesting one because it's not a person, it's a machine. Like, even the Terminator, they put like a face to him, right?
Yeah.
It was Arnold, and then in the second one, it was, I forget the actor's name. Like, so even though he's a machine, in order to make him more relatable, they humanize him by giving him a human actor and human face. If Terminator was just this metallic skeletal looking robot, it wouldn't have anywhere near the same impact that it had. Especially Terminator 2. If it was just liquid metal creature coming after you the entire time, it wouldn't have the same effect. Whereas HAL 9000 is just a light.
It's interesting.
It's just a red light with a voice.
Yeah.
The voice kind of humanizes him.
The voice humanizes him. But other than that, and you remember that movie Chopping Mall? It used to be called Killbots.
Yeah.
They renamed it to Chopping Mall. But yeah, that one was, they're robots in the mall, and they have robotic voices and everything. And that's why that movie, it became like a joke and a meme or whatever. But yeah, the robots weren't really scary, and it's because of that, because you can't really relate in any way to them.
Yeah, because if you're seeing a machine coming after you, you mentioned you were in a warehouse and you're scared the machine's going to cut your arm off and it's going to keep going because it's a force. But at the same time, it's not scary if it's just that. Like, if the machine comes to life and has kind of a mind of its own, or programming with a logic and a purpose, that's different than something mindless that just swings and kills you, right?
Yeah.
Because as humans, in our minds, I think we rationalize that if there's a machine, I can just turn it off, or I can just move to the side. And because it doesn't have a brain, it doesn't know I moved to the side. And as humans, subconsciously, we think that. So like when these robots in Chopping Mall come after you, you think like, well, there's so many ways that you can disable these things. They're just running on batteries or whatever, or electricity, and there's ways to disable them that way. And they're probably not very intelligent. Whereas HAL 9000, it's a machine, but it has a voice like a human and an artificial intelligence. And then the Terminators, they have human features. And even though they don't have emotion, you can't help but think that they're just something beyond. They're human, but something beyond it, not something aside from human, something beyond human.
Yeah. Interesting. And then we have, on the complete opposite spectrum, the characters who are really, I don't even know. They are, I guess, great villains because they're funny, and we relate to them because of the humor. Like Freddy Krueger. What made Freddy Krueger freaking amazing is the fact that.
Can you repeat it? Because I lost you. I don't know if the audience lost you too.
Freddy Krueger is an amazing villain because, well, in the first movie, he was more serious, although he did have some one-liners. But in subsequent films, he was just cracking one-liner after one-liner, and people loved him because of that. Because when you stir emotion in the viewer, that's how you get viewers to become loyal followers. You stir emotion in them, and getting them to laugh is one of the best ways to do it.
Partially that I'm gonna push back on that a little bit.
Okay.
Nightmare on Elm Street was, to me, when I was a kid, one of the scariest, especially part two, was one of the
Well, yeah.
scariest movies that I'd ever seen. I was so scared to death of it. Um, Partially how he looked and the claws, yeah, but the jokes, I think, made him scarier. It didn't make me laugh as a kid. It made him
As a
scarier.
kid, of course not. Yeah.
Because
just the mention of his name. Remember Maddie, our cousin Maddie, she used to just to screw with us. She would be like, Freddy's coming to get you, and we would freak. Man, we would be screaming, crying.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is not just the name and not just the claws. The fact that, for example, the one scene that she locked us in the room and made us watch Nightmare on Elm Street Part Two, the very beginning where where the kids are in the school bus messing around,
Yeah.
and then the driver's all of a sudden Freddy Krueger. You see the claws going on the gear shifter, and he starts, "Oh, strap on, kids," or whatever, and he's making jokes. The fact that he's making those jokes, to me, felt like he is so insanely evil that he's having fun fucking with you. He's having fun torturing you. And to me, that made it wasn't like I'm an audience member laughing and getting that emotion stirred. To me, it was, holy shit, this guy is so insanely brutal. Like, when you look at a movie where a villain is straight up evil, they're very serious about it, about what they're doing. Freddy Krueger was not serious. He was just like, haha, guts, blood flying everywhere, and he's laughing about it. Girl answers the phone. She's terrified, and he sticks his tongue out of the phone and licks her mouth, and he laughs about it, right? And he's just fucking, and she's completely horrified because it's horrific what just happened, but he's laughing. And to him, it's like he finds it funny because he has nothing to care about, because there's nothing you can do to him or to stop him.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel about it. I don't think it was so much the emotion as an audience member laughing. Like, now we laugh about those movies, but
I think sure, as a kid, definitely that angle has some validity for sure, a lot of validity. But I think for the older people, there's a lot of horror comedies that people enjoy. I mean, even ones that aren't officially horror comedies. Terrifier, I don't know if that would count as a horror comedy, but it's a similar way where
it is almost identical in the in the behavior. But again, now we see that as a horror comedy. But in the 80s, there was nothing like it. And adults and teenagers, not just kids, adults and teenagers were freaking terrified of those films. Now we laugh, we look back, and it's funny.
Yeah.
But in the time, you got to remember, when we were there at the time, it was different. It's like Star Wars. When we were there, it's different. Looking back in hindsight, we can think differently about Star Wars because now we know the prequels exist. We know about all this. But so all the kids that grew up watching the prequels when they were kids, they don't understand growing up with Star Wars how different that was because you use your imagination. Same thing with those horror movies. Like, there was nothing like that before. Sure, Evil Dead was a horror comedy, but that was a straight, or Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 1 was horror. But with something like a Nightmare on Elm Street, yes, now we can look back and think of it that way. But I don't think people were laughing in the movie theater, dude, watching those films. I don't think so.
I think you're right. I think you're right that it was a part of, I guess, a sign of the times. And times have changed. There is a recent one that's kind of similar but different, where, so I'm talking about Homelander from The Boys TV show, which started off as a comic book, but anyway, and the show is very different. But watching it, because I only read the first issue of the comic before I watched the show, and Homelander is like Superman, basically. He's the ultra powered superhero, and the premise of the show is there's the supers, so all these people with superpowers, and then there's the regular people, and the people with superpowers kind of have this group, like a team, that is supposed to help people, but they're all corrupt, and they they do things that are just really, really bad. and there's murders, man. I mean, they don't hesitate to kill people. Homelander, who's like the Superman guy, got the laser vision, and he'll blast and just slice up with his laser a whole crowd of people. And I remember the first couple of seasons, it went downhill, but the first couple of seasons were really, really good. And I remember feeling fear for the heroes. I'm like, how are they going to stand up to this guy? You know, when he is brutal and he does not hesitate, and he finds it funny when he blows or he crushes somebody's head and it explodes everywhere. And he just finds
because he has nothing to lose and nothing to fear. Yep.
You know, it's in that similar way. I did feel that for the heroes. I was like, man, really, really scared for them. Like, man, how are they even going to fight this guy? I would be terrified if this guy really existed and he was like this with no scruples. Like, what do you do? Right.
And that's what I'm saying about Nightmare on Elm Street. Exactly that feeling, I think, is what people felt, because this guy, Freddy Krueger, was in your dreams, so you couldn't physically hurt him, and he's messing with you and laughing about it and nothing. But now those movies, you know, they made sequels that were, you know, cheesier and cheesier and cheesier. So we're looking in hindsight now, knowing all those sequels came after and knowing what Freddy Krueger eventually became, and seeing movies that were influenced by that are now funny and intentionally funny. And now people that watch Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street 1, 2, 3, whatever, now they're like, oh yeah, that's hilarious. It's like a B movie, you know, but it wasn't at the time. I'm pretty sure it was not at the time. When I was a kid, we were kids, but I remember our teenage cousins, they were not laughing about those movies either. They found them pretty scary themselves.
All right. And to change things up a little bit now, there are some villains that are great because they corrupt a hero or somebody who's a good guy. You know, The Devil Wears Prada, they're coming out with a sequel this year. But the original, I loved the original.
Sequel came out already, I think, too.
Did it? Oh,
yeah,
well, I don't know. I thought it was like a summer blockbuster. Sure, but anyway, the original, I loved the original. Not just because I love Meryl Streep, but she is just one of these like really truly evil people, and you don't know why she's the way she is, but you kind of guess that she just had to be, because she's a woman who is in business, so she had to be, you know, cutthroat or whatever, and it just became her personality. But it's not just that that's how she is. What makes her truly great as a villain is that she takes the hero, who's played by Anne Hathaway, under her wing. Like, she brings her in and corrupts her, man, and just through actions like firing her and like belittling her and making her do all these crummy jobs or whatever, and just the way she grooms her to become the next her, you know, is so evil, but it's so perfectly done. I think it's so well done.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. In fact, when we were kids, you remember that one of the movies that still sticks in my mind as one of the scariest movies that I watched as a kid. Nope, not Thanksgiving. We didn't watch that as kids. We were adults. I know that scared you, but we were adults. When we were kids, Care Bears the movie.
Yes,
dude, that movie terrified me.
Yeah,
I couldn't sleep for
we were
days.
Both freaked out of that,
and it was
movie.
Because of that. Because the Care Bears, they're like these happy-go-lucky. They live on the rainbow or whatever, and they're super nice and friendly and all that. And then the villain, I don't remember who the villain was, but the villain
person or something. He's like a radish
would
guy.
corrupt them and turn them straight up evil. And that scared me more than anything. It freaked me out that a Care Bear, who was just this embodiment of good, turned into this straight up evil thing. And it's like, you know, so if done right,
and if done right, not freaking Emperor just telling the guy, hey, you had a bad dream,
rise, my little Vader.
Rise, my little Vader. Jesus Christ. But another one that's kind of like that was the Green Goblin, because he was the father of Peter Parker's best friend, you know, from Spider-Man. And Peter Parker being the alter ego of Spider-Man, and his best friend, Harry Osborn, his father ended up being the Green Goblin, and he killed Spider-Man's first love, Gwen Stacy. And I mean, well, that in itself was such a huge moment for Spider-Man and in comics in general, because up to that point, there weren't really significant deaths. And in a world where, within comics, where they bring back everybody who gets killed comes back within 2 months. Gwen Stacy stayed dead for decades. They just recently brought her back in an alternate dimension or whatever, but I don't know if that counts. She stayed dead, and it was so significant. That issue of Spider-Man is one of the best issues of all time. And then when Peter Parker, he wants revenge. He gets so angry because Gwen Stacy has been killed, and he comes back and he beats Green Goblin nearly to death, and then he sees who it is. Oh man. And it's Harry Osborn's dad, Norman Osborn. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, that's those reveals. Yeah, that's pretty awesome too. Like if it's someone that you felt you trusted, but one thing you have to be very careful with that, not only in gaming but in other media as well, because you don't want to pull the wool over people's eyes just to mess with the audience or to mess with players in such a way where the payoff is just to kind of troll them. You know what I mean? It has to be done properly.
Yeah.
Like that moment with Spider-Man works because of the dual emotion. Gwen Stacy died, and the person who killed her was someone who also he was close to.
Yeah.
If the villain, let's say Spider-Man, was fighting someone and the villain was just happened to be Aunt May just for the sake of being Aunt May, that wouldn't have the same kind of weight.
No.
You know?
You're right.
It wouldn't have the same kind of weight at all. It'd be like, oh, it's Aunt May, oh God, you know, but worse if you have, you know, like in a tabletop role-playing game, if you have like characters who trust an NPC and turns out he's been manipulating them all along, you know, that can work. It can work. But more often than not, most people don't know how to do it.
And I have an example of that.
Even people who know how to do it, can screw up. And one little screw up, and then all it's going to do is it's going to piss off the players. Like, you have an example. I'm going to give my example first. Mm-hmm. Basically, the official adventure, okay, the Vecna adventure, the official Vecna adventure from Dungeons and Dragons has a moment like that. I'm not going to spoil it too much, but there's a betrayal in that adventure, and nobody, if you watch videos, if you search online, nobody likes it. Everyone's upset because it just was not done right, and it's not fun for the players. It's not fun for the players.
Well, even in non role playing game, I played back when I used to play video games. It was Final Fantasy VII, maybe, or I don't remember what it was. Maybe it wasn't even Final Fantasy. I don't know, but you get like other NPC friends or whatever. You can switch them. You can switch up and use those characters or whatever. One of them was a panda, and this is part of. It's not really the main reason I hate pandas in the freaking games, but I hate freaking pandas. And for some reason, I let this panda join. You can choose who you let into your group, and you can choose to have like this panda. And I'm like, all right, let's let the panda in there or whatever. And man, you play with this panda for freaking like 10, 15 levels. And then one in the middle of a freaking middle of a battle, the motherfucker switches. He reveals that he's evil. He betrays you, and then so you're short one hero. So you're supposed to have like 4 or whatever. He leaves because he's fighting you now. So there's only 3 of you, and for the like next 3 levels, there's only 3 of you because he's fucking betrayed you and he's left you now short 1 person. And it was, bro, when it was revealed that he was betraying us, I was so fucking ticked off, dude. But no video game has made me that bad.
Yeah. I can't hear you now.
I was just ticked off.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That same feeling. That's what people feel, man. When Eric Westfall in your Darkest Sun, I know I keep bringing it up, but that was, you know, lesson learned, I guess. That was infuriating to everyone involved. Like people don't enjoy that. People don't enjoy getting betrayed in that way, like just for the sake of it. Like if there's no like, if there's a really, really, really good reason, and it better be a fucking really good reason, then cool. But If there
Yeah.
isn't one, then like just someone just turns evil. Like there's so many movies, specifically like action and horror movies that are lower budget tend to do this, where someone just turns on the heroes and for no reason, or the motivation is so like surface level, like they got
Yeah.
$1 million or they got oh I'm gonna get paid, and it's like not earned at all.
Yeah.
Like if there's a secret, if that person's harboring a secret like hatred for one of the characters and you know about that throughout the movie or whatever, maybe it gets earned a little bit more. But a lot of these like lower budget movies, especially action and horror, have that happen where one character just betrays everyone just for the sake of betraying them. It
Because
doesn't pay off
they
very
want to
well.
spin it as the twist, but
Hmm.
that's not how you do a twist, man.
Yeah,
Just out of left
yeah,
field, like yeah, it's and it happens a lot with more modern movies too, and it's because I don't know, I don't know what's going on with writing, and especially in Hollywood nowadays, man. It's just really tiresome, man. How they make so many mistakes, and that's why Hollywood's failing, unfortunately. But anyway, but speaking of, uh, so we're nearing the end here, but I think
yeah.
we can't go without talking about not Count Chocula, but the original, the OG Count Dracula,
Dracula.
one of the greatest villains of all time, hands down, bar
Yeah,
none.
that I would put over Darth Vader, no question
Oh
about it.
yeah, and Dracula, he's a tragic character. He ends up cursed for love, and what he's constantly searching for it, even in the afterlife. And that's something a lot of people can relate to. But it's an obsession. It becomes an obsession, and it
Yeah,
drives him to make a deal with the devil, basically, and sell his soul. And what he becomes is just something so horrific.
yeah,
But at the same time, it's horrific. But for us, the viewers or the readers, it's so interesting
yeah,
because a lot of this stuff is tied into folklore, from centuries and centuries of folklore, so it resonates with us on a deeper level because of that as well. Stories of vampires, and then the fears of people cannibalizing or drinking blood or coming back from the dead, and all that kind of stuff is like a deep rooted fear that I think everybody in the world has.
yeah,
And betraying your humanity, you know, and losing that, for the sake of the ultimate humanity, which is love, right? uh,
hmm
and you sacrifice your humanity for that, and it's kind of a weird dichotomy, I guess. But I think Dracula for sure is the ultimate villain in fiction.
yeah. And I think because also he has that motivation. He has a certain tie to humanity, even though he's no longer human. There's kind of that spark of humanity there, the potential for redemption, the potential
Right.
for you know maybe there's still something left in him. And I think that makes a villain a lot more interesting than, again, a villain that's just straight up evil for the sake of being evil with no redeeming potential whatsoever. I mean, Joffrey, let's say, from Game of Thrones, was straight up evil and probably had no redeeming qualities, but at the same time, there were potential reasons for that. Where so there's nuance, and it's a lot different than someone than
His
an
mother loved him.
yeah than an
Cersei,
evil character who
yeah.
just has it out for the world just for the sake of it, with no backstory, no potential reasoning, and no redeeming qualities. And it's like extremely flat, one dimensional, not interesting at all.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, so we can do some honorable mentions. Do you have any other great villains that you want to mention yet,
Hmm.
before we go into our
Um.
honorable mentions?
No, not that I can think of from the top of my head. But yeah, there are definitely great villains throughout a bunch of different media. You know, I think. Well, I guess you know what, Little Bill. Lil Bill from Unforgiven. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a western. Lil Bill is he's the sheriff of the town, but he's not straight up evil. He's just something else. I mean, he's kind of a jerk, but at the same time, he does have redeeming qualities, and there are people in town that like him. And you know,
And he's a product of his world too, though. I mean,
yeah,
the Wild West was really a world where you kind of had to be,
yeah,
not all good if you wanted to survive.
yeah, and you know, Unforgiven is sort of a revenge story too, but um, I love one particular aspect of that movie that kind of flips the story on its head. That's not very common in any kind of media, and that's that, you know, in a perfect world, Lil Bill actually would be the protagonist, and William Money would be the antagonist, because William Money has a reputation that precedes him. Everyone, even Lil Bill, has heard of him. The stories of just how bad he was, what a evil individual he was, who just killed for money, drank booze, and killed women and children. And to quote William Money himself, "Yeah, I killed women and children, just about everything that walked or crawled this earth, and now I'm here to kill you, Lil Bill." Like, in from a different perspective,
Right.
that's the villain killing the hero. You know what I mean? But it's not. And that's one of the things I really love about that movie, is that there's so much nuance to each character, and it flips the villain and the hero, but it still works that the villain is the hero and the hero is the villain,
Yeah.
in such a cool way.
Yeah, and it's all in perspective too, right? When we're talking villains, I mean, some people don't think they're the villain when they are. I mean, look at Thanos, right? So he in the comic books, he was in love with death and he wanted to impress death. In the movies, he wanted to balance the world, and you know resources were running scarce, and the best way to do it was to get rid of half the population.
Yeah.
So he felt he was doing a good thing. So it's all in perspective. He did not think he was a bad guy at all. Um, but sometimes it's in the eye of the beholder. So
Yep.
so
So I guess we'll end it on that.
Yeah, we can end it on that for sure. I did want to mention Dr. Evil, because he's just pure evil, and he's just to me one of the greatest villains of all time.
I agree.
Although not an evil villain, really.
Yeah.
It's such a joke. But when it comes to film, how can you top that? You know what I mean?
Right. Because you have evil, but how can you get better than evil? There's no degree better than a doctorate's degree in evil.
A doctorate's degree in evil. That's right.
I mean, that's the peak of evil right there.
Peak of evil, 100%.
So, all right, guys, thanks for hanging out. I am Vase Odin from Left for the Vultures, and
I am Geo from Headless Hammerhead YouTube channel. Hey, whatever villains we missed, whatever you think is the greatest villain of all time, drop it in the comments. Let us know. Keep the conversation going. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your ideas, and something we missed, somebody we've never heard of. I always love to check out new movies, new books, new stories, shows, whatever.
Yeah, we love hearing about these things. Thank you guys for hanging out. Check out, subscribe to the channels, and check out our upcoming Kickstarter, Left for the Vultures, which is a vengeance fantasy role-playing game. If you want some really cool villains, this is the game for you. So we'll put some links in the comments down below. Thank you guys for hanging out. We'll talk to you all real soon.
Take care.